Hey there friends, and welcome into today's episode of Artemis Anarchy, episode 44. We're getting close to that episode 50. The mystery guest still doesn't know who they are yet, and neither do I. Anyway, so today's podcast is about the Central reboot, and I know a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about it, so we're going to talk about it today. Guys on YouTube, leave your comments down below in the comments, you know the usual. Like if you like this podcast format. Subscribe if you want to see more of my ugly mug all around your homepage of YouTube, you know. Anyway, so today we're talking about the Central reboot. A little bit of video editing stuff, but today's main focus is going to be, I guess, a quick review and a quick and honest review of the Central reboot. I will give a quick and honest one once I've played through the whole game. Once we've done the playthrough that is coming out soonish, hopefully, which will be a weekly release, or every 2 or 3 days, depending how much I record tomorrow, which is Friday for me, but, you know, well, tomorrow is Friday for me, but for you guys, tomorrow's Tuesday, so I think for you guys on YouTube, the first episode of it should be out on Wednesday. Or it could be Saturday. I don't know. Like, Saturday that's just passed. Anyway, go check out the page. All that stuff. You know the deal. Getting my usual self-promo bullshit out of the way right now. But yeah. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, like I said, the Central reboot. The Central reboot. Okay. So, here's how we're going to talk about it. We're going to give a little history on why some people may not like it, why people do like it, and all that other stuff. We're also going to talk a little bit about the main story of the original Central, so Central 1, Central 2, Central 3, and we're going to pretend like Central 4 and Get Out of Hell never existed. We're also going to talk a little bit about Agents of Mayhem as well, because there may be something. We may touch on a little bit of Get Out of Hell, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, anyway, like I said, so yeah, like, I'll give you guys the rundown for anyone who's new to the Central franchise, what the rundown of the original story was. So, basically, your player character, aka the player, or son, or the boss in the later games, basically, at the start of the first game, you're just a citizen, you're just talking to someone about something, and then the Vice Kings and the Rowers, I believe. I can't remember if it was the Rowers or the... what are the other ones called? There's the Rowers, the Vice Kings, and the... I can't remember what the other ones are called. But, Los Carnalis. So, basically, what happens there, you get caught in a gang fight, and Julius and Troy Bradshaw, well, Troy Bradshaw and Julius Little, I think, save you in the middle of this gang war, and stuff like that. God damn it, no. No. But, again, like I said, you get caught in a gang fight, Julius and Troy save you, you get initiated into the Saints, you get canonized, you meet Johnny Gat, you meet everyone else that's in the Saints at that time. Basically, you go, you build up your criminal empire, you build up the Saints, as it were, you become Julius's second in command, and then you go to talk to the mayor of Stillwater, which is the fictional town you're in the first 2 games. And basically, what happens there, when you go to talk to the mayor, with Julius, Julius actually blows you and the mayor up on the boat, which puts you into a 2 or 3 year coma. And that brings us to the second game. The second game, you're in prison, obviously, at the start of the game. You've just woke up from your coma from the boat explosion, you know, continuing that story. Also, if you pay attention to the cutscene that happens before they come and see you, before the two guards come and see you, you'll hear that Troy has kept you on life support, even though everyone else wants you dead, basically, in the prison block. And basically, Troy's kept you protected for the second time, because in the first game, it was Troy who shot the gang member that was going to kill you, which is an important note to keep note of when I talk about killing Julius in a minute. So basically, you wake up, you go to a bar, you break out with this kid named Carlos, keep an eye on him because he's an important player in the second game, because, well, some things happen and I'll get to that in a minute. Basically, you start making, moves and stuff like that. You wake up out of your coma, you escape with Carlos, you go to a bar, find out that Gat's been arrested and been in jail for the 2 or 3 years that you've been in a coma, and then he's getting his death sentence today or that day or something when you come out of jail and stuff like that. Well, when you escape, really. And basically, you rush over to the courthouse, shoot the whole courthouse up, get Gat, and then escape, and then you go back to Gat's house / his fiance's house? Girlfriend's house? I don't know. I can't remember if they're engaged or not in Central 2. And then you go to the old mission in Slumville, I think it's called. It's something like that. It's like, but basically that becomes your new Saints HQ instead of the church on Saints Row, because Altor, a clothing company in the first game, takes over the whole of Saints Row, and Saints Row's basically been modernized. And right, it's a high district area, it's got expensive buildings, all that stuff. And yeah, so basically what you do there is you grab your gang together, but you're the leader of the Saints this time from the beginning. You recruit Shondi, Pierce, Carlos, and obviously Gat's already there, so Gat as well. So they become your 4 lieutenants. Mainly, so Pierce is mainly on the Ronin, Shondi is on the Sons of Sandy, and Carlos is on the Brotherhood. Those are those three's focus. Gat is your second hand man, basically. That's what Gat is in this game, and what he is in every other game, including 4 and Gat Out of Hell. Gat has never been the leader of the Saints, and never wants to be the leader of the Saints. That is an important detail that I may get into a little bit, because there will be things that I need to reference from Saints Row 4, even though I said that I wouldn't like to talk about it. But I'm not talking about the story in Saints Row 4, I'm talking about snippets that are basically internalized thoughts that were already there before the facts of Saints Row 4 and 3 in some cases. But yeah, so basically in Saints Row 2 you do the same thing, kill gangs, build your empire up, and you run Saints Row after a while. Well, you run the whole Stillwater after Saints Row 2. Now during this you find out that Julius is still alive. And Dex, who actually works for Altor, as well as Julius does as well, because Julius is a tour guide for Altor, who Dex got the job for Julius. But basically, you and Julius get drawn into the church, and then Dex tries to get both of you killed, right? Both of you get dragged in there, so you two escape together and stuff like that. And then obviously Julius has been shot during the escape from Altor and Misako and all that stuff. So instead of helping Julius, you shoot him as payback for, basically almost killing you in the first game. And that's where Julius' story ends. That's where you and Julius' rivalry ends, really. And yeah, so we get into Saints Row 3 now. the Saints are basically this big criminal enterprise. They're almost untouchable. And basically they've got a movie coming out. There's a guy named Josh Burke, who basically is just an actor. That's it. But he's rolling with the Saints to get a bit more method acting and stuff like that for his role as the boss in the Saints in this movie. And basically, he's the reason the heist goes wrong. There's a heist at the start of the game. You start as the boss. You've organized this heist or whatever of this big bank or something in Stillwater. And yeah, basically someone's paid off the police more than the Saints usually have. And basically, what is it? Basically everything goes wrong. Everything that could go wrong with the bank heist went wrong. Josh hits the alarm button, thinking that it's a button to open the safe, which is the most stupid way of doing stuff. Most stupid way to get caught, really, in a bank heist, especially in Saints Row. Basically, then you have a big firefight with the cops, blah, 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 blah. Thank you, Paragon, for the hydrate. And stretch, alright. But yeah, basically, you guys get caught. At the end of the at the end of the heist, you guys get caught. You get brought into jail, where the main bad guys of this, the main rival gang of this game comes into play. They take you out of prison onto a private jet, where you meet Philippe Lauren. He's Belgian, he's not French. Anyway, basically, you get offered the same split that you get, what is it? Basically, you get the same offer that Marrow gives you in Saints Row 2, which is an 80-20% split. The Saints getting the 20%. The Morningstar / the Syndicate getting the 80, or the Brotherhood got the 80 in the second game. But obviously the boss tells them to fuck off. Gat tells them to fuck off, and basically, as your way to get executed by them, Gat breaks out of his chair, unhooks all of you guys from the chair, and basically says that he can take on Warren and a couple of his goons while you and Shondi escape. So basically, what happens after that is you guys skydive, you guys land in a town called Steelport, which is basically the Saints Row universe's answer to New York, I think, is what it's the closest to. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's what Steelport was based off of. And basically, what happens there is obviously the Syndicate, all that stuff. There's an important detail I missed. Just before you jump to skydive down to Steelport, it seems like Gat's dead, which is an important thing, because, again, like I said, I'm not really wanting to talk about 4, but there are some points in 4 that need to be brought up. But basically, at the end of that, after you've jumped out the plane and all that stuff, Shondi's wanting revenge, you're wanting revenge. Shondi's just being a bitch, let's be honest. She wasn't a great character in Saints Row 3. She was matured, but she wasn't. She was just, being a bitch because she thought Gat died. Again, the reason I'm using thought is because of something that happened that you find out in Saints Row 4. But basically what happens is you go after Warren, kill Warren, and you'd think that'd be the end of it, but no. At Johnny's funeral, when you're holding a funeral with an empty casket for Gat and stuff, Killbane, who is the new leader of the Syndicate, / he kind of forced himself into being the new leader after Loren's death. And basically, he attacks you during that. He attacks the Saints during that whole thing on the Stillwater Bridge or whatever. And basically, this starts the second act of Central 3. And then basically you go and recruit a new group of Saints. So those are Kenzie Kensington, Oleg, who you met while trying to kill Philippe, and Zemo. Is there anyone else that I'm missing? No. Zemo, Kenzie Kensington, and Oleg. Now, Oleg is basically huge. He's like 7 foot tall, built like a shit brick house, Russian, and extremely smart. Like, extreme intelligence. And basically, he was being cloned, so the Syndicate has all these big brutes running around Steelport whenever you get enough notoriety with them. And basically, they have the bronze, not the brains, of Oleg. So here's what happened. Also, I should mention that there are 3 factions of the Syndicate. So the Syndicate is split into 3. So there is the Morning Star, which is run by the Winter Sisters, or the Winter Twins. Then one of them dies because the head of the Luchadors, aka the head of the Syndicate, Killbane, kills one of them, and Matthew Miller, who is a hacker great hacker, whatever, again, extreme intelligence, and rival of Kenzie Kensington. And basically, he is the leader of the Deckers, which is your cyberpunk kind of hacker group, right? So basically, what happens with these, you do the same thing, you deconstruct these 3 gangs, you do all that stuff, you do all that usual kind of, destruction and stuff like that, causing chaos, all that stuff, causing disarray. And then the Stag comes in. The Steelport Tactical Anti-Gang something. I can't remember what it is. Basically, they're the SWAT. Basically, they're a PMC, right? They're a private military. I will actually tell you guys what it's actually called. Special Tactical Anti-Gang Unit. That is what STAG stands for. So basically, what STAG's job is to get rid of the Saints, to get rid of the Syndicate, which is the Morning Star, Luchadors, and Deckers. Basically ran by a psychopath known as Cyrus Temple. I was away to say Cyrus Hill, but that's something else. I was thinking of Cypress Hill there. Anyway, but Cyrus Temple is basically, again, he's your usual military type of villain kind of thing. Because basically that whole situation on the bridge and Johnny's funeral and stuff like that. So basically, at the end of the game, you get a choice. Go after Killbane and kill him, which kills Shondi and Violet the Winter. I think that's the one that's left alive. Or go and kill Cyrus, basically, which saves Shondi and Violet, basically. And basically what happens there is that the canon version is obviously you go and save Shondi, you go and save Violet, you go and kill Cyrus, and Killbane gets away, obviously. But yeah, there's not much difference in the endings really, aside from Shondi's dead in the Kill Killbane ending. But yeah, so that brings us to some little points I want to make about 4. So the first one, the first point I want to make is in Saints Row 4, Johnny Gat is alive. You become the president. Right, I'll give you guys a quick rundown in the start bit, right? So basically, you go to kill Cyrus properly this time because it turns out he's not dead and he's part of a terrorist cell now. You become the president because you stop a giant fucking nuclear missile from hitting the White House, and then you become president. So you're president, aliens attack. I know I'm just glossing over that like that's a normal thing. Don't worry, you get used to it. It's Saints Row 4, it's aliens. Its whole thing is aliens and superpowers. The alien that comes down, voiced by Ian McKellen, basically takes the smartest people of planet Earth and most dangerous people to him, who would be the biggest threat to him. And bear in mind, biggest threat is a big point here because of what I'm going to say. And then blah blah blah, you basically find out you're in a simulation, you break out the simulation, he puts you back in another simulation, you break out of that one, and you escape, right? And there's a consequence for this escape because Zinyak, the alien, tells you that he will do something to show the consequences. And this consequence is blowing up planet Earth. So Earth is gone, and you find out that Johnny Gat is alive. Now, remember how I said that he seemed to have died in Saints Row 3? This is what I'm meaning. He got abducted by Zinyak all those years before, which at the time of Saints Row 4 was about 4 or 5, I think 6 or 7 years ago. At that point, in the game's timeline anyway. So basically, Gat was such a threat to Zinyak himself and his whole alien fleet that Gat had to be abducted way before the boss was. But the boss was the second one. Because Gat is a psychopath, the boss is a sociopath. That is the difference between Gat and the boss, I think. But yeah. So basically that brings us up to speed. Obviously there's some things in Gat Out of Hell, like there could be, like there's an ending where you reset the universe and saints don't exist. Some people like to believe that is what happened in the reboot, is Johnny Gat and all the saints are still alive in universe, but aren't in Santo Luiso, you know? And so there is a possibility that they could come back as police, as villains, as whatever, right? Just throwing it out there, right? But now let's go with Volition's next project before Saints Row Reboot, which was Agents of Mayhem. Now, Agents of Mayhem flopped. It was meant to take place in Saints Row universe, so it had some similar characters like Johnny Gat, it had Pierce, it had Kenzie. So this was kind of where people thought, okay, one of the endings of Gat Out of Hell exists, and that is Agents of Mayhem's universe, basically. And basically what happens there is, if you figure it out, Kenzie's a cop, technically. Gat's a cop, Pierce is a cop. Pierce is the owner of the Vice Kings instead of Benjamin King. And if you remember, the Vice Kings are from Saints Row 1. So, yeah. So basically, Agents Mayhem was like if Saints Row met G.I. Joe. It was basically a Saturday morning cartoon kind of version of Saints Row, with agents and stuff like that. It could have been a good game if it had co-op, and if it had a bigger open world, but the open world in Agents of Mayhem was tiny, because the only part of South Korea at all that you got was Seoul. That was it. Seoul. That's the map. So was the map of Agents of Mayhem. Basically with extra futuristic bullshit. That's all I can say, really. Agents of Mayhem had potential and it wasn't executed properly. It could have been good, but it didn't work. It didn't work when people were expecting a Saints Row 5. Or, in our case today, the Saints Row reboot, which nicely segues me into this. So, here's where my standpoint is as a person who has played all of them, including one. I've played every Saints Row game, aside from the, released, unfinished version of the PSP game. Like, that doesn't count because technically that was never finished. So, we're not talking about that. So, basically, the Saints Row reboot. I was just giving you guys a backstory just to give you guys an idea of the story, right? So, I'm going to do this review of Saints Row reboot as a spoiler-free one. So, I have to be careful with my wording, so give me a minute if I go silent, right? So, basically, I'll tell you guys the start, because the start you guys have seen. Most likely by now, you've seen the very start of the game, at least. Which is, it technically starts at a little bit close to the end, but, like, it does that whole, 4 months earlier or whatever. Anyway, right. So, I'll go from where you actually start and leave that end bit that happens at the start till the end bit. So, I will keep that out of this spoiler-free chat. But, basically, the Saints Row reboot starts off with you needing to pay your student loans off. But the thing that I was worried about with the story was it was going to ram down this narrative of you having to pay your student loans, you being broke all the time, blah, 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 blah. But only the first, hour is really like that. And even then, it's very light on what they talk about. They don't force it down your throat, like I thought it would be. It's not a main focus point. Basically, you've been struggling to get a job, you just got fired from your job. Is that a spoiler? No, it's not a spoiler, because that happens within the first hour of the game. So I'm going up to the first hour of story stuff that I'm talking about. That's it. So if you've not played that first hour, spoilers ahead, alright? So click off the video or skip to, I think it'll be about 50 minutes in or something like that. If not, just scrub through until you hear me. I'll also put a timestamp up there for you guys to know where the non-spoiler parts are. But basically, what happens is, obviously you've got a new job at the PMC, which is Marshall Defense Industries, or MDI for short. And basically, you start there hunting down a infamous hitman called the Nawali, right? So his gang's holed up in this old abandoned, Wild West kind of playground kind of thing, right? Theme park, whatever, amusement park, whatever you want to call it, right? So basically, you go in there with Marshall, and obviously your character's a bit of a sociopath, a bit of off the hinge, likes a bit of chaos, doesn't go with an actual plan ever, and basically your CO doesn't like that. So basically, after you've dealt with the Nawali, even though your chaos is what got him caught, you get stiffed on your performance bonus, basically, right? And then you get tasked with hunting down or keeping an eye on a Los Panteros convoy. I couldn't remember what it was. They basically stole antiques. Those are one of the rival gangs in the game, or rival factions, I should say, because Marshall is actually a faction in the game instead of a gang. There's not 3 gangs, there's 2 gangs, and Marshall Defense Industries, plus the cops. the cops and martial defense are two different entities, because martial defense is a PMC, and obviously the cops are the cops. So basically what happens is you need to track down this convoy and stuff, right? And basically once you've tracked down the convoy and, you know, you get trapped in a sandstorm, you have to go on your own because your partner had to pull back and cool the car down, basically. And there was so much sand getting in the intake of the vehicle and stuff like that, blah, 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 right? So you're on this convoy, you're fighting all these Wasp Panteros, that are, you know, again, trying to kill you. So, by the end of this whole confrontation, you get to the final truck that has all the antiques on it and stuff like that. You and the big guy that is driving the truck fight inside the cab and fall off a cliff. Now, obviously, you're the only one there, and you have to fight like 6, 7, I think it's like 10 on 1 at this point in the game, at this point in this section. So basically, you shoot him, you beat them all, you beat the Panteros, whatever, right? And then he gets back up in the cutscene and tries to choke you out. And then you manage to get him off you, and you grab a rock, a literal rock about this size, and throw it at the truck that is hanging off the edge of the cliff, because the truck got stuck and threw you guys down below it into the canyon. And basically what happens there, you throw it, and basically the whole truck comes down, crashes on him in a very comedic fashion, because he gets up and he walks over to you very slowly and doesn't notice the truck until last minute. And basically from there you get promoted to head of security, and a whole thing goes down with like the two other gangs, so the Idols and the Panteros. They come in, try to steal this, I can't remember what it's called, it's like a codex of something. Codex, the Hummingbird Codex, that's what it's called. I don't know what it is fully, I'd have to look more into the lore, because I never seen like much of the lore stuff during my playthrough. It wasn't very well executed, I would say. I say that's a weak point of the game, to be honest. That's one of the more things that but that's more of a me thing than anyone else. But again, basically you get promoted to head of security for this event of the reveal of the Hummingbird Codex and stuff like that. The Panteros and Idols come in, try to steal it, the Idols get away with it. You're protecting one of the shareholders of Marshall Defense Industries and get fired for doing so, instead of going after the Hummingbird Codex. So then you get fired. You're in a depressive spiral. And yeah, basically after that, I'm not going to go into much more detail, so probably now is probably when they can come back. Yeah, okay. So after you farm the Saints, you get stuff done. And that's basically the rest of the game. It's basically basic Saints Row stuff from there on out. So so that's not a spoiler, that is just Saints Row being Saints Row, right? So Saints Row reboots, I will go with the bad first. I want to talk about the bad first because I do have a lot of criticisms of it, but they're not all necessarily fully bad. But they are bad if you're looking at it from a like, you know, original fan point of view, right? So it does have its clunkiness. Obviously, the day one patch did fix quite a lot of that, I will admit. I've went and played it again today, and it fixed almost every issue that I had on the first day, right? So like, it was stuttering a lot for me on high or on medium. It would crash from time to time. It's not crashed that much on me, surprisingly. It's only crashed like 3 times total. And that's since day 1. So I'm not too bothered about that. But where the bad comes in is, I will say the gunplay feels very dated. But I like the old gunplay of Saints Row. So that's not a bad thing for me, but it might be a bad thing for you, so that's why I'm listing it in the bad. Now, there's nothing spectacular about the gunplay. The story, it's good, but it has weak points. Like every story does, though. Like every story in every game does, it has weak points, and it has some cringy points because of the whole time it's set in. It's set in like nowadays, so like there's a little bit of like cringy humor in it, but like there's a lot of good stuff with it that really outweighs that in the story. Like the story does get darker, and that's all I'm saying. A little bit darker. It doesn't get Carlos level darker, right? It doesn't get Carlos and Aisha level dark. Kind of. Well, that's all I'll say, right? So, basically, the activities are good. If not, well, there's a couple of them that are pretty lackluster. Like the toxic waste one. That's just driving the same truck around town, depending on where you are. That's it repeats and repeats. It's the same thing, nothing really changes. But a lot of the side missions and stuff like that, and the criminal ventures, are very fun. I love them, okay? Don't get me wrong, I love the insurance fraud. I love doing the military experimental tech. That is where you get your hoverboard, by the way, for anyone who wants to know early in the game where you get your hoverboard. It's when you get to the criminal ventures part, and it is Excalibur or something like that. I can't remember what they're actually called. It's X something. Starts with an E. There you go. But yeah. So now that I'm actually thinking of it, for me personally, there's not much bad. There can be parts where it is a bit slow and stuff like that. And there can be some criminal ventures that are very, very, very repetitive. Like I said, the toxic waste one is probably the worst one I've played so far. Probably the clothes shop ones, like Let's Pretend and Planet Saints. You're just driving around trucks, the same thing. So there's about 3 or 4 criminal ventures that aren't great. The heist part of criminal ventures isn't great either, because you are waiting outside of the place and your crew's robbing. You're just a getaway driver. Now, if they named it Getaway Driver, that would have been fine. So that's my main downsides to that. It's like 4 or 5, I think 4 or 5 in total, bad criminal ventures out of the 14. So like a third. I think there's 14. It's 14 or 15. So roughly a third of them are pretty meh. I wouldn't say they're bad. Like they're not horrible, but they're not great, you know? But yeah, so what else would be considered bad? A lot of people don't like the driving in Saints Row Reboot because it feels a lot like the old driving. But again, I would put the driving in a plus because it has the side swipe. It has proper drifting and not e-brake drifting. Like there's an actual drifting button in the game, which I love because that's all I used to do in Saints Row, is just drive and drift around, you know. There's also, so I think I'm gonna go into the good parts of the game, right? Because I've not got many bad parts. Right. So here's a minor side mission, technically. It's a side mission. It feels like a side mission, but it's a main mission as well, or a main quest. It becomes a criminal venture. Let's put it that way, right? Basically, what it is it's a criminal venture that is all about LARPing. So live action roleplay. It is the most fun I've had in a Saints Row since Saints Row 2. I will say that. Like, it's just so fun. Like, it also, the weapons that you get in it, you get to keep, and it still affects them the same way. So basically, if you kill someone with this Nerf gun out of the LARPing thing, they will do the same death animation, because basically how it works, and there is an in-game explanation for this, it is because the whole town of Santo Luiso is live action role playing at all times. So if you shoot someone with the Nerf gun, they die and get on with their day. That's it. But yeah, basically it's so fun just to run around, you know, the sandbox with just this Nerf shotgun and like a Nerf pistol and like a foam crossbow. So basically it's a non-lethal crossbow, we'll put it as, right? And it is so fun. Like, believe me, when you get to play that part of the game, if you haven't already, I love it. Now, that is the type of humour I would love all the way through Reboot, but it doesn't have all that humour all the way through. It's trying to keep itself as grounded as possible while still being ridiculous, and it kind of gets in the way of itself sometimes. But again, like I've said, I can't praise the game. I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10 Saints Row, right? It's about an 8 out of 10, right? I would say. Personally, I would say it's 8 out of 10. There are a few issues, there are a few problems with it, but again, the story isn't anything different than what Saints Row 3 or 4 would have been without, you know, the filler missions. I think that's the thing I loved about this Saints Row reboot, is that they don't have the activities as story missions anymore, aside from the LARPing part. Like, that is one main mission, and then it becomes a criminal venture. That's it. The rest of them all have different set pieces, they all have different, like, AI and stuff like that that move around. Now, there's one more bad thing about the enemies that I will interject here, actually, now that it's just came into my mind. But the AI, especially the enemy AI, tends to stand in the open and do nothing. They stand there, shoot, reload. They don't go behind cover or anything. There's also not a cover button in the actual gameplay of Saints Row Reboot, but that's not a big issue to me. Saints Row's never had a cover button, so that doesn't matter. But again, like, the game feels like a perfect mixture for me between 2 and 3. Like, 2 and 3 are probably the best ones, depending on who you are. I think 2's the best. Some people think 3's the best. I prefer 2, sorry. 3 felt a bit too ridiculous. 4 was more ridiculous, but the boss wasn't an idiot, you know? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't think the boss was great in 3. But in 2 and 4, 2 he was the best. 4 he was better than 3. But, yeah. But I'm, obviously, like, the good things with, also actually, while we're on the mention of the boss actually feels like a person, if you know what I mean. Like, yes, 2's boss felt like a person, a little bit, but, like, if you get what I mean, like, they just felt like you knew they were a character, and everyone there was a character. Whereas they actually flesh out these characters of Saints Row Reboot, a little bit at least, like, obviously they all have different backgrounds, like, basically, right, okay, I can get a bit more into the story here because this is a bit at the very, very, very beginning. You have 3 other roommates. So you've got Kev, you've got Eli, and you've got Nina. Nina's the car specialist. Kev is the cocky DJ, basically. And Eli is the smart business guy. Alright. Now, out of the 3, Eli was probably my favourite. Then Nina. Then Kev. Kev started to get better by later in the game. Okay? So if you don't like Kev right now, if you're playing like the first couple hours of the game, of the main story, don't worry, Kev gets better each time you do a mission. He feels like he actually grows and he actually matures a bit more by the end of the game. But like, they all have this silliness to them, they all have that bit of just, you know, millennial type of humor, and, you know, just that kind of, you know, kind of humor to it, you know. But again, like I said, it's a good game. I like it. I like it a lot. Like, it right now. Now, I'm waiting till I see the DLC for Saints Row Reboot before I say which one is my favourite. But as of right now, my rankings of Saints Row, including the reboot, goes like this. Saints Row 2 is still number 1 for me. Then Saints Row Reboot, then Saints Row 4, then Saints Row 3. If we're counting Agents of Mayhem, then Get Out of Hell. I do not like Get Out of Hell. Like, Get Out of Hell had like 2 important moments, and that was the very end of Get Out of Hell and the very beginning. The rest of it wasn't great. Let's just say that. And Dex didn't get a very fitting end to his story. But if you want to know more about Dex, please just search it up, because we'd be here for another 6 hours if I went on about Dex. And that's considering he's only been in 2 games. 3 if you count Get Out of Hell. The other reason I don't count Get Out of Hell as a Saints Row game is because it's technically an expansion to Saints Row 4. But yeah, I think the Saints Row reboot was good. Anyone who disagrees, I'm willing to discuss it. But if I was to recommend a Saints Row to begin with, it would be the reboot. The reboot is the best for new players to play. And if they want to play the older games, it's a lot easier to narrow down what you like. If you want a more serious story than the Saints Row reboot, you go to Saints Row 2. If you want more silliness and crude humor from Saints Row, you go to Saints Row 3. So that can tell you what your more favourite Saints Row would be if you're a brand new player to the franchise. But yeah, the people who are hating on it either have played like 2 hours of the game and hated it, or not played nearly enough of it to enjoy. Like, again, I've played about 15 hours of it at this point so far, right? I've played about 15 hours of Saints Row Reboot, and I'm not getting bored yet. I've still got a lot of stuff to do. I've got a lot of parts to play still. I've still got a few ventures to unlock, like Let's Pretend and Planet Saints. I can only comment on them because I've seen gameplay of them. I've seen what it looks like, but yeah, like, I think all the characters in the reboot need one more game, at least. I think they need to expand on the characters a little bit more. They did feel a bit bland at times, I will say, and a bit cringy at times, obviously. But whoever the hell suggested that they should reboot Central again after this reboot is brain dead. Because, like, I didn't think I would like Kev. He's still up there, like, he's still ranked in one of the favourite characters in the game. Like, obviously the boss is my favourite, so Kev's, like, dead last, but I warmed up to Kev. Like, Kev's, once he gets further through the game, he's a better character altogether. Like, he is just a better character after certain parts in the story that I will not talk about because those are spoilers. Anyway, but yeah, like, I can't wait to start making videos on Central Reboot, and I'll do a stream or two of Central Reboot. But yeah, basically I'm going to do it the same way I'm going to be doing Central 2. I am going to release Central 2 and Central Reboot both on a weekly basis, okay? So basically on Wednesdays is going to be Central 2, and on Fridays is going to be Central Reboot, which hopefully you guys do enjoy. Like, you guys are clearly enjoying the #1 podcast in the world, better than Impulsive, better than What's Good, better than every other podcast in the world. You know, this has been Artemis Anarchy. Hope you guys enjoy episode 44 or 43, whatever we're on. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, I guess. See you guys in Santo Luiso. Peace.